When I was sitting in the hospital holding my dying mother's hand, my mother-in-law texted me that I could no longer enter my own home, but when the police arrived, one truth changed everything. When I was sitting in the ICU room holding my mother's hand and the monitors beep reminding me every few seconds that time was running out, at that very moment my phone vibrated. On the screen, the name Margaret, my mother-in-law, was glowing. I thought maybe she was asking how Emma was. I was wrong. The message was short, cold, and direct. You can't come back home tonight. The locks have been changed. This is our decision now. My mother's fingers were growing slack in my hand, and at the same time someone had just announced they were taking my home from me. The room smelled faintly of disinfectant. My mother's breathing was thin and uneven, each inhale sounding like it had to fight its way out. I flipped my phone face down. In that moment, all that mattered was brushing my hand across her forehead. But somewhere deep inside, anger began to burn low and steady. My name is Emily. I grew up in a small town in Ohio where everyone knows everyone's business. Last year the factory shut down, and I lost my job. I started picking up part-time shifts as a nursing assistant, juggling bills and stretching every dollar. Even after insurance, my mom's cancer treatments cost thousands. The house Daniel and I bought 5 years ago was supposed to be our fresh start, but most of the down payment had come from my mother. That's why the deed was in my name. Margaret had never been able to swallow that. Daniel always claimed he was stuck in the middle. He wasn't cruel. Just weak. When Mom's condition got worse, he said, maybe you should stay with Margaret for a few days. She could help. Help? That woman never missed a chance to remind me I wasn't good enough for her son. I looked out the ICU window at the hospital parking lot. Rain had started falling, streaking the glass. I called Daniel. Why did you change the locks? A few seconds of silence. Then that familiar hesitant tone. Emily, we need space. Your mom's bills, your job situation, it's all been a lot. Mom thinks. It's my house, Daniel. Both our names were on the deed. No, I said quietly. You never looked at the final paperwork, did you? He didn't answer. I hung up. At 2 a.m, my mother's breathing caught suddenly, like a hiccup that wouldn't settle. I called the nurse. A doctor came in. Minutes later, silence filled the room like someone had turned off the world. I held her hand until it grew cold. The next morning, eyes swollen and body numb, I drove straight home. Margaret's car was in the driveway. A shiny new lock gleamed on the front door. My key didn't turn. The door opened. Margaret stood there perfectly put together, hair styled, makeup flawless, like she had a board meeting instead of a confrontation. I texted you, she said calmly. You didn't need to come. It's my house. She laughed lightly. Daniel is my son. You're just. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling the police. Don't be dramatic, Emily. Within minutes, 2 officers arrived. One was young, the other older with tired eyes. They listened to both of us. Margaret spoke first. This is my son's home. We've supported him. This woman isn't stable, her mother just died. I reached into my bag and pulled out a file. The same one Mom had handed me last year during her first hospital stay. If anything ever happens, keep this safe, she had said. I handed the deed copy to the older officer. He studied it, then showed his partner. He said, looking at Margaret, the deed lists only Emily as the owner. This property legally belongs to her. For a split second, Margaret's face drained of color. That's not possible. Daniel. The officer continued gently, if you don't have permission to remain here, it could be considered trespassing. I called Daniel and put him on speaker. Tell them whose house this is. He hesitated. Then, quietly, when we refinanced, the deed was updated. The down payment was from her mom. Margaret looked at him like he'd betrayed her. You never told me. You never asked, I said. After the officers left, Margaret picked up her purse. You'll regret this decision. I rested my hand on the doorframe. No. I've been regretting things for a long time. Today isn't one of them. She walked past me without another word. Daniel lingered in the doorway, eyes down. I didn't mean to betray you, he said. But you did. I didn't have the energy to yell. When I needed you, You chose your mother. He stood there a moment longer. I'll stay at a friend's place for a few days. We need to think. When the door finally closed behind him, a strange quiet settled over the house. Empty, but mine. I went into my mom's old room and opened the closet. Her clothes still carried that soft, familiar scent. I sat on the floor and let the tears come. This time they weren't just grief. They carried anger. And clarity. The following week, I contacted a local legal aid office. They told me I could begin separation proceedings if I wanted to. For the first time, I said yes without fear. Mrs. Carter from our church, Mom's longtime friend, brought over a casserole and hugged me at the door. You're not alone, she said. It was such a simple sentence, but it felt like oxygen. I cleaned out the basement, posted an online listing, and rented a room to a nursing student. The extra money gave me breathing room. I applied for a full-time hospital position and, a few weeks later, got the call. Life didn't suddenly become easy, but it became manageable. Sometimes I think about that night in the ICU. If Margaret hadn't sent that cold message, if I hadn't remembered the deed, I might still be living in my own house like a guest. That text was meant to push me out. Instead, it pushed me upright. Now when I unlock the door, the key turns smoothly in the new lock. I step inside knowing this place is mine, legally, morally, and in my heart. My mother's final gift wasn't just the house. It was the truth she left me with. I was never weak. I was exhausted. And sometimes, under flashing red and blue lights, the courage to speak the truth is enough to change everything. If this story moved you or reminded you of your own strength, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support truly means more than you know. Thank you for watching, for being here, and for sharing this journey of resilience and truth with me.